Morning all. Another good one. Is it me, or are things moving pretty rapidly now? It certainly seems that way online, with more and more mainstream people talking about things which were not mainstream kind of no time at all ago. And of course, the one thing that is seems to be moving faster than anything is, as usual, the discussion about immigration and remigration, or to give it its less euphemistic term, forced deportations, mass deportations. And this is tied into ideas of civil war and attempts to avoid it. You know, that seems to be an increasingly alarmist topic now. And there was an article in The Guardian by a guy called John Merrick, who was kind of rubbishing the idea that Britain was on the brink of ethnic conflict, and saying it was all hyped up nonsense, and that it was just a fringe opinion, and it was just in people's echo chambers, which I'm not sure isn't true. I mean, it's difficult to discern the public mood from an echo chamber, such as mine. It's difficult to do that. But there's always that feeling that what happens on Twitter happens in real life in 6 months' time. And I've got to say, in a very theoretical sense, that the idea of some kind of civil war is, and I say this theoretically, obviously theoretically, that there is an attraction to it. You know, I must stress this is a theoretical attraction to it. And you know, we should be be very concerned about civil war becoming a real thing. You know, we definitely should be. It is. I mean, war is an ugly thing. War is hell, but you know, civil war probably is even more so. Um, and one of the things the article was saying is that people on the right are kind of wishing civil war into into being in a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think in some respects he's not wrong about that. But he concludes his interview. It's in the Garden. His name is John Merrick. You can find it. He concludes by saying that the truth is far worse. And what he considers to be far worse is mass deportations. And I suppose the reason he considers that to be far worse, as if civil war is not bad enough, is that he considers that to be far worse because it strikes at the core of his liberal sensibilities that we must that we can all get on together, and Britain is a tolerant country, and that's the continued sort of delusion that these people have. And that we're all enriched by immigration and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's why he thinks it's worse. But in reality, mass deportations are the humane option. And although adopting that policy is will be very, very difficult and painful, for the people who are deporting and for the people who are enforcing it. It's going to be very, very painful for everyone involved. But it's less painful than civil war. And I suppose the reason why the idea of civil war, or even an uprising or revolution, is appealing, is because it now seems like it's the only thing that will make things change. Things will only change if we make them change. The boats will only stop if we stop them. I remember a couple of years ago a guy who he's been banging this drum for a while. I think he termed himself the mosque buster, and he would attempt to he would put efforts into, I think pretty much free, put efforts into um, refusing planning permission for mosques, and I think he had some success. Um, and one of the things he was saying is that what will happen if things are not tackled and not changed is that Britain is going to have to disgrace itself in a humanitarian way. And I suppose what he means by that is it would have to be it'd have to become an authoritarian state in order to do that. And there's some truth to that. And I struggle with this myself, with the idea of Britain being a free society, um, which obviously is very dear to my heart. Um, but it does seem to be that Britain can be a free country, um, well, Britain cannot continue to be a country if it continues to be a free country. You know, there is going to have to be some element of force involved here, such as forced deportations. Um, and as unpleasant as that sounds, I hate to say this, you know, I really hate to say this, um, but that is better than the alternative. See, my estimation is that we need to deport between 5 and 7 million people, something in that ballpark. And it's not difficult to know who it is that in general, it's not difficult to know who it is that you have to get rid of. It will be difficult in practice, in individual cases, um, and there will be injustices in order to have the country continue as a going concern. There are going to be people there is going to have to be some injustices visited on people who are perhaps blameless, you know, and that's unfortunate. But you start with the boat migrants. They've all got to go first because, like I say, we know who they are, but the British state doesn't seem to know anything, certainly about things like that. So, but any of these people being put up in hotels, they've all got to go first. That's the first people. The next people are anybody who is foreign born and has been convicted of a serious crime, murder or rape or assault or anything like that, crimes against the person. Then anybody who's been convicted of any other crime. Um, then it starts to get a bit more tricky because you've got people who are so-called legal immigrants, people who have been given indefinite leave to remain or um, well, to go back a bit, the serious those people that have committed serious sexual crimes, like the grooming gangs. It's them, and then anybody who knew about it. And it's increasingly clear that much of the families and communities of these people knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it. So they have to go as well. And then it has to be then you have to start getting rid of people on a behavioural basis. And this gets more difficult, but it's not that difficult because you can tell by people's behaviour whether they're going to be a good citizen or not. You know, people who are marching through the centre of London shouting death to the West, and death to Jews and all the rest of it, um, you know, kill their mothers and rape their daughters and that sort of stuff, they have to go as well. Um, because it's obvious that they don't mean as well. It's obvious. Now, where it gets tricky, of course, is that you're you've got people um, who could be said to be exercising their right to protest. Another thing which is very dear to me, and of course I've been on the wrong side of that line as well, um, protesting against things and feeling that I had a right to do it. You know? I mean, partly the reason I think I had a right to do it because I was born here. But then, of course, quite a number of these people who do this have also been born here. But this is where the behaviour comes in. You can see a pattern of behaviour. People who are advocating for um, rights in a civil society, in a liberal society, and I mean liberal in the best way, can quite easily be considered to be concerning themselves with the welfare of this country. But people who happen to be born here but scream behead those who insult Islam or um, advocate for Sharia law, even though they're born here, you know that they're not good citizens. You know that we don't need them. You know that they've made their allegiances, and it's not to us. And this is quite easy to identify, even if you have to do it on an individual basis, which is the logistical challenge here. But once you see, so much of this is that so many of these people think they can get away with everything, and they have been getting away with everything. But if you get tough, you won't have to import. You won't have to deport 7 million people. You only have to deport 2 million, and then the rest will behave. Once they know we're serious. But this is the issue. They know we're not serious. They know that they can use our liberal principles against us. But as difficult as that sounds, that is the humane option. I mean, other countries have done it. Ironically, Pakistan did it to 1.7 million Afghans. I mean, presumably, I suppose there was some bleating in the United Nations from some people, whatever. But the Pakistanis just did it, and somehow the Pakistanis were allowed to do it, and we're not, for some reason. You know. But one wonders if talk about a certain subject makes it more likely. Uh, I mean, I'm sure that's true in many ways, but not talking about it also makes it more likely. If you see what I mean, you know, and in Britain's reputation is of a country which is civilized and stable and with robust institutions. But none of those things are true anymore. great swathes of the country are not civilized. You know, it isn't stable. You know, it's just about holding on. But if I threw a match into that bowling field, the whole lot would go up, and that's what it's like. So many things that we have believed that are true about this country just simply aren't true anymore. There may be an underlying truth that's still buried beneath all the crap and the filth, but it's not the everyday truth of things. And you know, people say that, you know, the country is stable and, you know, it's weathered storms before, and certainly it has. But part of the reason it's weathered storms before is that the people in it have pushed for the welfare of the country generally, even if it was a sort of class warfare, even if it was, you know, the Great Reform Act. Um, there was a concern about society as a whole. There were disagreements on how you got to that, but calling for Sharia law is not having any concern about the society at all. It's being concerned about obliterating the society and replacing it completely with something else. But the reason why civil war seems attractive in a sense, and revolution even more so, is because it wrests control away from Keir Starmer and Lord Harmer and Tony Blair. It pulls control away from them. It's the chaos which is attractive, because in chaos they can't get away with things. You know, they're brought down to our level. In a total societal collapse, you know, one of the sort of attractive things is finding yourself in a kind of social breakdown, and you come across Matt Hancock, and he hasn't got his police protection. But any stability, any mitigation, any adaptability works against us and works in the establishment's favour, because it means they can get away with stuff. They'll be able to escape so long as the country is stable. So long as the electricity grid is intact, so they can run their surveillance cameras. But we know that the regime will do nothing. That all they'll do from time to time is they'll introduce a pressure valve. They'll announce something, um, hoping to quell the anger. But I think people are done listening. They're done listening. We know we're being lied to, and we know that they'll do anything to save their skins. And part of this shift that I sense is that it is the type of people that are um, getting involved in the conversation. You know, I've said this before, you know, sort of lifelong centre-left intellectuals are now making positive comments about people like Tommy Robinson, of all people. Now, that's significant, that is. And as Mrs. X has always challenged me when I said I think things are changing, she always says the same things. Is it in the newspapers? Is it on the BBC? Well, now it is in the newspapers. There was a Telegraph article the other day, and I don't know who it was by, you'll have to search it, but there was a Telegraph article the other day suggesting that Britain's ruling elite, the Labour Party and the regime, are could it be that they're deliberately destroying the British economy? Come on, come out of there. Ah. Which was something. The theory being that if they destroy the country quick enough, which they appear to be doing, we'll have to call in the IMF, and a condition for assistance from the IMF will be that we'll have to rejoin the EU, which is, of course, is the pet project of Starmer and everybody like that. Engineering a crisis so extreme that that's what we'll have to do. It might not be rejoin the EU, but it might be rejoin the single market, and then you're within the EU in all but name anyway. So the fact that these things are being discussed is significant in its own right. And is cause for a sort of optimism. In a perverse sort of way. But as I was saying the other day, I think it's what's got us to this point is persistent pressure. You know, we can't rely on a tipping point. So keep talking, keep the pressure up. And we may, just may, get our country back. Cheerio.